Welcome to the Living Systems Art and Design Collaboratory. My name is John Crawford. I'm a professor at University of California, Irvine, and I have the honor to be one of the co-founders and mentors of the Living Systems Collaboratory. This is one in a series of spotlight presentations where the artists and designers in the Living Systems Collaboratory are sharing work in progress, things that they've been working on over their time in the collaboratory. And so it's my great pleasure to introduce Claudia Brenner. Claudia will be telling us a little bit about her work and some of the approaches that she's taken in developing her work for the Living Systems Collaboratory. Claudia is an integrator, illustrator, technologist, systems designer, information designer, curator, business architect, and has really had a wonderful career in such a wide variety of areas. She combines seemingly disparate information into comprehensive illustrated or interactive systems, maps, technology platforms, maybe digital business plans. She's currently working on a farm to community project with a focus on designing and visualizing ecosystems to help solve complex global challenges. And you're going to see some aspects of what she's been working on in a very specific area that I'll let Claudia describe to you. So Claudia, we're so happy that you're able to join us today and really looking forward to your presentation. So here we go. Claudia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you to the Design Science Studio and the Living Systems Collaboratory. It's been an honor to be part of this community, and I'm looking forward to moving through with all of you. So I'm very excited to be able to talk about this Surviving Wildfires project. And so in October, this is not a Photoshop at all. This is a real photo. In October in 2020, I woke up in the morning and the sky was orange. It was apocalyptic feeling, and it just had such an impact on me. It was hard, to go outside. It was painful to breathe. And I knew that this is a time in transition for all of us in our planet. So that was one thing. Another thing that happened is during the pandemic, I made an appointment to go to buy some glasses. And when I got to the store, the owner was helping some people. And so I waited for quite a while. And when he got to me, he's like, hey, I'm so happy you're here. I'd love to help you, but can we make another time? But if you really need me to help you, I will. My wife called me a couple hours ago, and there's a fire in Fairfield near our home, and we need to evacuate immediately. And I have an hour to drive home. And I looked at him and I said, you're not going to help me today. We'll do that another day. But, he was in shock. What do you need? I said, do you have gas? Do you have money? Do you know a route? Do you have an escape route? How can I help you? And so, we talked for really about 10 minutes of like, what do you need to do? And he got grounded and he took off. And fortunately, nothing terrible happened, but they did evacuate. And it was a shock to them. And so that is why I'm doing this Surviving Wildfires project, because something needs to happen in order to help prevent this. I'll talk about that in a second. So, the questions in my mind were, where's the fire? Is it safe to go out? Is it okay to exercise? For my buddy, did he have an escape route? What should he pack? And then where do they go? They ended up going to a campground. So this began my plight of a lot of research. And of course, at that time, I was looking at the urgency of the situation. So I started, here on the side of urgency and survival. And as I did more research, I thought, well, how can we best prepare to do the best we can in these disasters, and specifically wildfires, because that's what's affecting us here in California. And then if it does happen, how do we recover in the best way with regenerative methods? And, how do we live with our earth and our living systems, and then, optimally, like, how do we prevent that? And then, we're in this time where we're in a vicious cycle. The fires are going from, 3 to 5 months to 9 months now. So it's a longer fire season. The fires are bigger, they're more frequent. How do we get out of that? And Buckminster Fuller talks about trim tabs as a way to do the most with the least amount of effort. So how do we look at all these opportunities? Because I see all challenges as opportunities to make a better situation. And how do we get to that virtuous cycle where we have prosperity, vitality, and harmony, the best for the planet and for all of us? So I'm going to hop around here. So hopefully that will flow. But as I did the research here, I went and did this, looked into the Wildfire Panorama. So the idea here is it's an infographic, but it can be interactive, right? So we can put a lot of different kinds of information in here, like videos and audio and whatnot. But there's 3 main sections, and there can be more, but this is kind of where I started. So I'm going to hop out here and go to my Miro board, which has a lot of information about my project. This side is the deliverables side, but as you can see here, all right, so it's easier to zoom in. So if I go over here, the one side is about, the urban living. So this is where most of we humans live. And I'm not going to talk about that today, but it's a very important, how do we live in resilience as a community? And then I looked at home dwellers, and that's the main focus for today. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But, that's how we live in our homes and our neighborhoods. And in the research that I did, I found that there's this area called the Wildland Urban Interface, or the WUI for short, is where there's a lot of populations that are moving, and the housing and the nature is most together. So that is where there's the biggest risk for wildfires. The other areas that we'll be looking into are also with the animals and the forests and the plants and all our natural systems, okay? So I'm gonna pop back here. Okay. So with the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, how do we best live with fire? I'll talk about that a little bit. And this is actually Mill Valley, and you can barely see the houses in here because they're just in the trees. It's a beautiful area, but it is a tinder box. It definitely could be a big challenge. So some areas that I'll be looking into about how to best live with fire is going to be about prescribed burns, especially using native methods, how to regenerate land in the best way, reducing the fire resistance in the building materials, access to water, community resistance, so much more. There's a lot to look at. It's abundant. But today I'm going to talk about the emergency home evacuation. And we go back to my buddy in the eyeglass store, and that's where I've started. So, all right. So we're gonna take a look at a prototype demo. This is your sneak peek. No one else has seen it yet, so bear with us. We're in the process of finishing it, but we were so excited we wanted to show you. So what happens in this home scenario is that we're living in the wildland urban interface. And the question is, in the research, there's so many potential pitfalls by not being prepared for an evacuation. So that's kind of the scenario that we'll roll through. And I'm not going to show you everything, but the plus signs are basically some of the beginnings of the solutions, or things to know or things to watch out for to help in the planning process. But as you can see, we're sitting on the back deck on the porch and hanging out with the dog, and life is really good. So this guy You know, he's got a beautiful place. But all of a sudden, he looks at his cell phone and he's like, no cell service. And then he gets up. Oh my God, no fire? Should have raked the leaves and trimmed the brush. This place is a tinderbox. A little information down here. One thing to note is that during the disaster, cell phones and internets usually do not work. So you need a backup plan. Really an important thing. All right. So he goes in to his living room and has to figure out, well, before he figures out what to pack, he goes in and he sees that there's an evacuation order. He's got to get out right away. The timer's clicking at the top. You can see he's got less than 10 minutes to evacuate. And now the fire's getting closer. You know, one thing to do is to remove the flammables. So there's all kinds of tips. But, oh my God, there's so many things to pack. And this was a conversation that I had with this manager, owner. You know, there's up to like 37 things, 40 things, and that's just too much. You know, you need bedding and food and water and money and valuables. And anyways, you get the picture. So what to do? An emergency kit would be really helpful to have prepared. Well, we've packed everything up mostly, and we've got a couple things here. But the car, does everything gonna fit? Well, we definitely need water. Dog needs some food. Yeah, dirty laundry. If you don't have time, we heard that it's the dirty clothes that you wear most often. So if you don't have time to pack, just grab that and go. And I guess my backpack, but I need the parka, but I don't have enough room. Well, maybe we'll leave that. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so we make the decision, we pack up, and it's time to go. And one thing, when you get here, you need an evacuation route, right? So, all right, well, let's get going. We got 4 minutes left. So just when you think you've escaped, oh my gosh, it's a traffic jam. And I don't think I have enough gas in my tank, and there's not enough gas for the next 50 miles. I wish I had gotten gas. That's another pitfall. So expect the unexpected. Anyways, here's some information about our project, and you'll be able to see that in Amora and all our wonderful partnerships and collaboration. So I'm going to come back. That's the demo. It will be up in a couple of weeks. So really, the moral of the story is expect the unexpected. I came into the collaboratory and the design science studio with the intention of being able to visualize and use systems design to solve complex problems. So that's really the underlying thing. But we saw, a scenario, and how do we use systems planning, mapping, and design to help solve problems? So we can use it to do experiential design and role play. I did this in Kaiser Permanente. We actually had an innovation center, and we physically could actually test things out, move from a surgery room to a clinic to a home environment, prototyping space. And it really influenced a lot of thinking. But with the pandemic, we need to meet virtually. So I think this could be really helpful. It can help also, this kind of methods can help with scenario planning and decision making. So, we talked about the WUI aspects, but how do we do better fire management? How do we make better policy? We have here an example of the animation interactivity, but we can even get into mixed reality, which we are planning to do. And we can also even turn this into a game and help people learn by making decisions themselves. The other thing that's really wonderful about systems views is that you can design for multiple stakeholders. So we have home dwellers, we have people who work in fire management, all types of people. And I'm a big believer and doer of market research and user research and planet-centered design. So we can do all kinds of interactive systems maps to help people see and interact with a system to solve complex challenges. And you got a taste of one example of what's possible. This is another map that we're working on, and you can actually see once you start mapping a system where some of the big problems are. Thanks to the team, Travis for building all this out, and Lucas for all the data analysis, and Rob for editing creative. Yeah, Travis helped with a lot of the interactive, the animation, and the design. So thank you so much, guys. And thank you for the partnerships and collaborations. We've got, I'll be working also with the Glenn and David Sibbett and his colleagues. Grateful. And we can do this. We can not only survive, we can thrive during these compound disasters. Please get in touch with me if you're just interested in the project, if you'd like to be interviewed or you want to help design. Love to have that conversation. This prototype will be up very quickly and probably within the week. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Claudia. This is really such important work, and it's been such a pleasure having you as part of the Living Systems Collaboratory. I wonder, could you speak a little bit about how you were influenced by or how you integrated the Living Systems ideas and framework into your process?
Yes. I would say, I have to backtrack a little because I do have a life science background and it has influenced me. And that's why I have a systems view. But the collaboratory, I was in tech for many years. And so it's just a really happy place. So my alarm there. So tech is such a happy place, and you're innovating, but you don't always know what's going on. And so this Living Systems Collaboratory has really put a lens with all the amazing speakers that have come in and all the people in the lab about how do we really live with our environment? How do we really live with nature? I mean, we need to radically change. And so it's really put a different lens. So when I'm having conversations with other people and corporations, I feel a huge difference in my thinking.
The corporate world or the kind of technology development world sometimes tends to be fairly linear in orientation, where one thing leads to the next and then something else leads to the next, and people try to pretend that there's a causal relationship from one thing to another. And of course, one of the things that has been so exciting to me as I've learned more and more about the Living Systems framework is to really see this, not all the various aspects, all the various ways in which non-linearity is such a central part of everything, that there's really these systemic processes that are iterative and cyclic in nature. And I know this is so important to your work. I wonder if you can speak to ways that your project is moving more and more into a kind of a non-linear systemic approach to surfacing some of these super important ideas that you've been exploring.
That's a great question, and I'm trying to think how to best answer it because there's a lot here.
True.
Yeah, but one thing I thought about is that we have the digital world now and the natural world, right? And we have the abstract and we have the concrete, right? And then we have all these multiple people, and there's so many things going on all at once. And so it's really, I think, important to what I call move the boundaries out of the context that we're looking at, so that we can see that, oh, wow, there's this there's this thing, I call them satellites, but I think they call them signals now. Oh, that's a trend. That's something happened. And I think that's going to be really important. And it might not matter today in this, like when I put up a commerce system, it's like 6 steps, right? Or whatever. It might not matter today, but it will matter in 6 months because we can't project the inventory systems. Or like in healthcare, you know, one of the regions was going and moving forward with the patient management systems. That was already happening. So having that sense of things that will happen and kind of, you know, like in football, you're throwing the football and you got to go out and catch it, right? It's like anticipating, you know, where's that ball going to go? And you don't know. So, yeah.
Yeah, this really, we end up finding the necessity for these living systems to be self-organizing. And to me, that's so important in the context of societal adjustment to the world of wildfires, that, you know, we can't prevent every wildfire. The more wildfires we prevent, the worse they get. We need to find ways that this living system becomes self-organizing, in the sense that the people, the humans that are part of this environment, need to be aware of their own role in this. And to that end, I'd like to go back to something you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, where you talked about trim tabs and maximum effect for minimum effort. How do you see that aspect of both the Buckminster Fuller's work and what we've heard from Mansoor Vakili and the Living Systems framework, this notion of trim tabs and minimum effort? How does that apply in the context of the work that you're doing?
Wow. I think it applies in so many ways, because there's kind of 2 vectors I'm thinking. One is a specific thing, of example of looking like prescribed fires, right? And the other one is kind of the method of which we do systems and how we have new practices or combine practices, best practices. So in terms of prescribed burns, there's something I learned at IBM is the total cost of computing. So what's the total effect, right? So it might be awful to have really awful smoke right now because you're burning something, but that burn, as toxic as it could be, is smaller and it's more controlled. So it's less invasive and toxic than if you have these wildfires where now we're all breathing bad smoke. And now all these, you know, we're looking at numbers. I didn't show it today, but we were looking at like the worst fires and the casualties and the cost of the buildings. And so the cost to society and to nature is so huge. So how do we figure out how much we need to spend and what effort we need to do now? Because that's going to prevent this bigger amount that's happening, right? That these investments are so critical to do now. So, and it's hard sometimes to do that, you know, like, you know, I thought about in Louisiana, you know, you build a level 4 dam, but you really need a level 5, right? So it's hard. I'm not saying this is easy, because this takes a lot of brilliance, but you know, that's what there's so much brilliance in the world, and we have that ability to figure this out.
Very well put. Thank you so much. So for those who are just joining us, Claudia is one of the spotlight featured artists and designers in the Living Systems Collaboratory, co-sponsored by the Buckminster Fuller Institute's Design Science Studio, habRitual Studios, and University of California, Irvine. And we have many more of these spotlight presentations for you to dive into. So I hope people will take the opportunity to do that. And we also are part of the Regenera launch for Design Science Studio, and Claudia has some work that will be exhibited there. So we have a quick video, Claudia, showing a quick sample of some of that work, and we'll share that with everyone now. So thanks so much for joining us, Claudia, and look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Here's Claudia's video.
Thanks, John.
So this has been a Living Systems Collaboratory Spotlight presentation. Look forward to seeing you at the next one.